So we are going to get started. Good evening, everyone. This is a development activities meeting. Thanks for joining us this evening. We're going to talk about the Parklet at Lawn and Ophelia and some improvements to that. Presenter tonight is PWSA. My name is Wanda Wilson. I'm with Oakland Planning and Development. We're the host of the meeting tonight. And this project will have a hearing before the City Art Commission because it is a piece of public property. We just have a couple of other things just to announce so people are aware of upcoming meetings. For November's Let's Talk meeting, the discussion is about trees in Oakland. And then the Oak Watch meeting is also part of that same meeting on November 17th at 6 o'clock. So we'll also have Oak Watch topics around code enforcement that evening as well. There's a development activities meeting about a proposed zone change called Oakland Public Realm District E. We'll be hosting that on Monday, November 29th at 6 o'clock p.m. also on Zoom. The Oakland-wide community meeting, we'll be hosting that meeting the following day, which is Tuesday, November 30th at 6 o'clock. And UPMC will be presenting plans for the high-rise UPMC Presbyterian Hospital bed tower at that, which is a development activities meeting for that project. And there's our website there of our events for the Zoom information, and you can see all of the events there at that part of our website. So I'm going to turn it over now to Maria Natoli from PWSA. Maria, you can go ahead and unmute and introduce the rest of the team of presenters that you have with you tonight. And then we'll be monitoring the chat, and I will coordinate a Q&A from members of the community utilizing the chat after your presentation. So I'll verbalize the questions and you can answer them. But you can go ahead and give your presentation.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Maria. I'm with PWSA. I'm an associate project manager in the stormwater group there. And yeah, like Wanda said, we're talking about Lawn and Ophelia, the green infrastructure project in the South Oakland neighborhood of Pittsburgh. So this has been going on for a few years. There was an internal review of an earlier design that kind of resulted in a more cost-effective plan for this project moving forward. We presented this and the changes to the Oak Cliff group back in February of 2021. Our design consultant, Ethos, is going to talk about everything in more detail, but these changes include things like a rain garden located within the parklet, storage for the water, landscaping, surface paths, and a couple other things. So overall, this project is really important for stormwater management, and it's going to reduce flows going into the combined sewer system, which will ultimately decrease overflows and sewer backups. So if you want to stay on this slide, I think our consultant, Damon, who's the design engineer, is going to take over from here.
Thanks, Maria. My name is Damon Weiss. I'm a principal at Ethos Collaborative and a civil and water resource engineer. I'm also on this call with a colleague, Barton Kirk. Barton, jump in as needed to clarify or add additional detail. So as Maria said, we have been working on this Lawn and Ophelia project for a little while. It's actually one of probably a half a dozen or so projects around the city of Pittsburgh that PWSA has taken on the last couple of years that specifically look at managing stormwater within our public parks and our public space to address the ongoing combined sewer issues. Wonder if we could see the next slide. For those who are familiar with this site, there are some aging playgrounds there. From the perspective of stormwater, there's a lot of water that kind of cascades down the roads and collects in this area. It presently, for the most part, drains, down over the hill and is creating some erosion on that side. This project would primarily aim to kind of take some of that water off the street and store it in what is sort of a reimagined park. This playground is actually being decommissioned by the city of Pittsburgh. And so it presents an opportunity to kind of envision it as sort of a more passive, recreation and functional space overall. Next slide. So this project does have some history. The original concept probably dates back, I want to say probably 2015 or so. The city and PWSA collaborated on a vision for this park. The work that we've done has sort of built upon that effort since then, but the original concept was to basically pick up water in these concrete bump outs that then took water into sort of a central rain garden, while also kind of preserving some of the existing landscape around the perimeter and just creating an overall inviting but low maintenance and passive recreation space. Next slide. We've also engaged with the community at least 3 times during the design over the last couple of years. Once in early 2018, as Marie had indicated. These slides that you see up at the top, those graphics are from that earlier concept, and I'll be speaking a little bit more about them. And then more recently, in February and September of this year, we presented what is basically a scaled back version. There were some items in the original design that had less stormwater function than amenity function. And with the Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority recently coming under Pennsylvania Utility Commission PUC oversight, some of those things were evaluated sort of at a different scale, and because they were less mission driven, some of those things were taken out. But the core functionality and the core vision within the park remains the same. Next slide. So again, this is that original concept. You can see it retained the concrete bump outs. It has sort of this idea of a central rain garden with a perimeter path. There was a path, existing path would be retained to the upper, overlooked area. And then there were originally some, the stormwater bump out in the street is really the big thing that's been eliminated as part of this redesign. Next slide. This is basically the, revised design. You can see the bump out along Ophelia Street's been eliminated, but the character of the rain garden and the main space kind of remains the same. To the left, to the right there, you see some of the character images of some of the, what the aggregate surface would look like, what the meadow seed mix might look like when it's in bloom, and what that, some of those other, materials might look like. Next slide. These are some of the flowers and the plants that would be visible and planted in the rain garden and in the surrounding areas. There's a good mix of native perennials, ground cover, shrubs, trees. It's going to be a pretty vibrant and well vegetated space overall. The park right now is in a little bit of a sadder condition. The playground equipment is aged, and there's not a lot of vegetation going on there. Next slide. And so, what we have here is basically a sort of a before and after of the parklet. In the upper left corner, you can see what the park looks like today, and then the rendering, basically incorporates all of those different things that we talked about on the plan from basically the same perspective. The plants that are shown there are accurate. They do represent what the species and the types and the sizes of the plants that were selected. You can see there's an additional number of trees along lawn and also along Ophelia and across that are not in this particular picture, but it has potential to be a very relaxing, enjoyable space. I know the purpose of this is to kind of chat through, the project as a whole. I think it's a relatively straightforward project, and so I think we could probably welcome any questions at this point.
Great, thanks. So can you talk about, maybe we could go back to the plantings and you could talk about how they would bloom throughout the year?
Yes. So our landscape architect is not on the call, but I'll definitely do as well as I can here. The plants you see here are all, shown in bloom, but you definitely have some different seasons on these. Barton, if you have a better sense of when these things bloom, a lot of these are, spring and summer bloom. I think the intent overall was to provide some visual interest throughout the year.
Yeah. So that's generally correct, Damon. And just taking it, there is mid-spring. I don't know that there was a lot of early spring, but certainly mid-spring, June, July, August, into September and October, sort of ending with the purple asters there at the end. There obviously, once the fall comes around, plants begin to senesce, there won't be, there will still be visual interest, but there won't be flowering visual interest within the rain garden.
And I know the trees selected for the street trees have both spring interest with the flowering, and then when it comes to fall, they become sort of that golden yellow color that we show in the rendering.
And we have a question about maintenance and of the plants, but I was also just going to ask generally, will Department of Public Works continue to maintain this? They maintain it now, so what's the maintenance going to be like? You guys are creating it and PWSA is putting it in, but Public Works maintains it? Yeah,
so the maintenance is divided between DPW and the PWSA in general. The rain garden itself would be, for the first year, it would be maintained per the specifications by the contractor. They'd be responsible for replacing any plant material that dies back, reseeding things if they don't take, and generally weeding and keeping the place looking good for that first year. After that, I believe PWSA takes over the maintenance of anything that's related to the stormwater, which would include the plants and vegetation within the rain garden itself. And I believe DPW will still be responsible for maintaining kind of the periphery, vegetation and things like that. Maria, is there more to add to that?
Yeah, so just to elaborate, PWSA has a green infrastructure maintenance contractor that takes care of all of our sites. So like Damon said, they will start maintaining a year after construction's completed. And that includes mowing the lawn, weeding, getting trash out of the system, as well as cutting everything back for the winter months.
Okay, and before we leave this slide, there's a question about the plant palette and whether all would definitely be included, or is it just a menu that the contractor gets to choose from?
No, it would be, those have been spec'd out and shown on plan, and the expectations that the contractor will put all of these in. It's not a selection, and these are not like reference images. These are the actual images that will go in.
Yeah, and just so there'd actually be the landscaping plan with the locations and the plants identified.
Yes, and actually, if you go back one slide, I believe. Yes, you see the swatches that are within the rain garden itself and along the perimeter of the meadow mix area. Because this is a presentation slide, there's a page in the plans that basically each one of those areas represents a different one of these plant species and shrubs and plug areas. So you can kind of get a sense from this of what the swatch looks like, but they definitely correspond to specific plants, specific spacing, specific sizes that would go into those areas.
Okay, this map, this drawing shows this sort of shape, and so related to a question about, you know, is there a way that somebody gets into the site down at where there's a point there? Or would that be like just open that somebody could walk in that way?
The existing fence around there would be maintained. You know, it will be partially taken down in order to construct, but it would be put back up. Only because it was there and we didn't really feel like it was necessary to take it down the whole way around. So there would not be an entrance at the point specifically. What you see really going on there is that's the connectivity of the sidewalk on that side to kind of the sidewalk on the opposite side. There's no striped crosswalk at that location right now. And so this is sort of a new addition to help facilitate that. The entrances, there's the existing entrance on Ophelia, and then on Lawn, the entrance is actually being moved from basically about where the T is, maybe a little bit to the right of the T in Lawn Street. That's where the existing entrance of the park is. We would be moving it further to the side in order to maintain basically an ADA grade into there, into that flat area that does not currently exist.
There's a question of would there be electricity here?
There's no electricity at the park right now, and there's no plans to put electricity in right now.
Would the fence across the street from Lawn Street from this site be repaired as part of this project?
It would not. We recognize that there's deteriorating sidewalk over there. We recognize that the fence is not in good condition, the slope. But this project is specifically focused on the stormwater within the park. And knowing that there was a sidewalk over there, I think it would be our recommendation to the city to basically abandon the sidewalk in that area altogether, let it go back to you know, grass and vegetation, because we provided basically a better and more stable route, you know, along there. There's not really a need for that sidewalk on that side. Eventually, the city will have to address that fence, in my opinion.
And would mosquitoes be a problem with where there's water in the rain garden?
Should not. The rain gardens are generally designed with a silt, a very silty, sandy type of soil mix. They're anticipated to drain down in a day and a half after it rains. And it really takes more like 3 or 4 days for mosquitoes to really become problematic in an area like that. So there should never really be standing water for more than a very short period of time.
And there's a little yellow box at that point. What's that?
That yellow box is actually the new ADA ramp.
Okay,
So
like on the curb there.
Yeah, the little detectable strips.
And there's a question, what's under the garden oval? I don't really understand the question, I guess.
So if you go to the previous slide, there's sort of a cross section along the bottom there. Now this is the previous design, but it's the same idea. The oval, and I think we're talking about the lower rain garden oval. Basically, that area would be depressed to create some ponding, kind of like you see in that image to the right down there. And then below that, there would be basically a couple feet of good soil that the water can infiltrate in and that the plants can grab a hold of with their roots. And below that is basically storage for the stormwater, you know, that kind of drains to this area, slow releases it back to the sewer system. There's also a little area to the right, a little area that's sort of to the very right of the words rain garden. You can see there's a different material. If you were to go forward 2 slides, maybe 3, one more again. You can see here that area over there is basically an extension and a more formal gathering area, you know, resting area for anybody who wants to use the space. It's not just a loop path around the rain garden, there's actually a small patio area there that would be basically like a decomposed limestone type of material.
And then the area up above, it's more of just sort of a meadow kind of space.
Yeah, the area above is, you know, it's currently it was also an aging play surface. We would be taking up that bad surface material and basically allowing it to go relatively wild. It would be sort of the same no-mow fescue that you see kind of around here, where it's just low maintenance. There is opportunity up there to create into something more, but because it doesn't really have a specific stormwater function, you know, perhaps that's a future project by the city.
And could you, I don't know if you mentioned this, but I think it's always good to reiterate dates. So it's going to Art Commission on what date?
Monday.
Sorry? Actually, it got pushed because of the Art Commission. Yeah.
It has to be 30 days. So
it has to be 30 days. So yeah, we will be going, you know, in November.
December.
Oh, sorry. I'm getting my months wrong. December, correct.
Okay, do you know the date? Or is it always the standard?
I think there's a special one going on this month, right? Yeah. I don't know the date off the top of my head. Maria, do you remember what it is?
It's December 8th.
That's when the Art Commission meeting is?
Yep.
Okay.
And then your time frame after that is to get this bid out and do construction in the spring. Maybe you already, I just think it's again good at the end, you know, to reiterate sort of dates and timeline for people.
That's exactly correct. Construction will be slated for the spring as soon as we can get bids out back and get folks mobilized.
Okay, so after Art Commission, then you would put the bid package out. And is your bid package ready to go, or?
It is. It is.
Okay.
There may be some minor tweaks that come out of that Art Commission meeting, but you know, it's actually been ready for a couple months.
Okay. And then if people could if you could let us know, we can make sure that we update in the spring, you know, around timeframes so that people know when things are going to be happening.
Okay.
And do we know, would it be the same contractor who sort of does the demolition of the playground and that kind of thing? Or is that separate from your contract?
I believe the city is going to be demolishing the playground themselves. That's kind of one of the benefits of working closely with the city is there are cost shares that occur on these projects that kind of have the mutual benefit between the two agencies. And in this case, I believe because the city was already planning on demolishing that equipment and decommissioning the park overall, that became one of their items that they're providing.
Would there be any frogs or fish in the rain garden?
I can respond to that, Damon.
Go for it.
Appreciate the question. And I know that the image that we have in front of us does show ponding water, which Damon explained earlier is only a temporary condition. So no, unfortunately, well, for better or for worse, goldfish and frogs would not be happy in the rain garden because, as Damon explained, the bottom of the rain garden is filled with a very porous soil that allows the rainwater to collect and pond temporarily for a few hours and then drains down through. So there would be no standing water or ponding visible, several hours after the storm. And so it would not support goldfish or frogs.
So there's a reference to a rain garden on South Atlantic Street. The grass looks messy.
What neighborhood is that? South Atlantic.
Friendship.
Is that Friendship?
Friendship.
Barton, are you familiar with that one?
I am not familiar with that one. South Atlantic.
Oh, Garfield. Okay, sorry.
Garfield.
Atlantic's in both, so.
That's not Center. No.
So that one's Hillcrest. It's located in Garfield, and
Okay.
you're right, there is a lot more grass on that one. This one will not look like that with all the perennials that we plan on putting in.
Yeah. Most of what you see here, I mean, there are things that you would see in sort of there's some things that you would see in sort of an English garden, like the irises and everything like that. They're very often planted in residential gardens, but they also like wet feet. There's red twig dogwood, some of the plants around the outside. It's going to be very showy with a good mix of shrubs that get to be 2-3 feet in diameter and 2-3 feet tall. There's not as many grasses on this one as you would see other places. And there's not an over-reliance on seed mix either. So should be pretty nice.
Okay, then the Oak Cliff Community Organization is making a decision about the support letter for Art Commission next week at their meeting.
Okay.
I don't see any other questions. There's some suggestion of a flower there in the chat. And I don't know if we have any other questions. We might be at a point of, sorry. Could we put benches on the upper lawn?
So we are providing sort of these bench seats on the lower part, but we don't presently have a lot of improvements on the upper no-mow lawn area. I would have to defer to Maria and PWSA on some of that question. There was a pretty big internal conversation at PWSA a couple of years ago when they went under the PUC oversight about site amenities and what that meant for basically ratepayers' money. Maria, anything to any additional thoughts on that?
I can discuss that with DPW, but at this time, there's no plan to put benches in since it's not an added stormwater benefit.
And I would just add, Damon, I believe it's been some time, but in our earlier community meetings on this back in 2018, there was concern about providing too much seating in the park. And I think that there was sort of if I remember correctly, there was a sort of somewhat of a compromise on the seat blocks at the end of the rain garden, but there was kind of an expressed interest that they didn't want to have more formal seating in the park, and we'd have to go back to those minutes, and I believe that did come from meetings with Oak Cliff. Yeah.
Yeah, I do recall that there was a concern just about general littering and such. So the question about if Oak Cliff provided them, would it be permitted? I think I have to defer to the city on that question. I know PWSA probably would not have any objection at all.
Yeah, that's correct. It's not our land. Ultimately, it's owned by the city. So we're open to it. We would just have to get approval from the city.
I don't see anybody specifically on the phone who wouldn't be able to use the chat. So I think maybe we're at a point where we've had a lot of questions and you guys have provided answers that maybe we'll be at a point of wrapping up. Thank you very much for your presentation. We will have the recording of this meeting on our website. There's a project page on our website for this project. We'll also have the notes there available. And this presentation, the slides from this presentation are also on the website. So if people want to refer to those images again, that's where you can find them. And again, our event calendar on our website is available for other meetings. And make sure you get notices sent to you by joining our e-newsletter list if you're not already on it. And then follow our social media accounts as well as another way to get information about what's going on. You can make a donation to OPDC on our website, and can always just email questions at opdc.org if you have questions. So thanks very much, everybody, for attending. Thanks to our presenters, and I think we'll conclude. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Everybody.